And welcome back, everyone. I'm with David Solomon, co-founder of BDS Natural Products. David, when COVID-19 descended upon the planet, one of the first calls I made in March was to you to say what is going on and what is going to happen. And as things progressed, I called you again and with great concern, particularly with China and the United States, India as well. You shared with me some extraordinary insights about the logistics of the issues, as well as the future of botanical trading, where plants are going to come from, climate change, the whole array of things. I would love for you to share with our audience some of those same insights of what is happening and what is changing.
Well, thank you, Lauren. I appreciate the opportunity to put a few words together on this. Well, one of the main areas of concern is obviously crop availability. We are in a very competitive world in our botanical field. The problem we're seeing is a lack of raw materials. The raw material demands, especially during COVID, have increased 30 to 40% in many cases, and sometimes even double or triple depending on which part of the world and which products we're looking at. The problem we're facing is there's only so much supply available worldwide. And you cannot just turn the tap on and produce more product. It just isn't feasible. And some of the problems we're facing, not only are we seeing a huge extra demand, we're also seeing labor issues. We have under COVID lockdowns, we're seeing migration of population, and this population migration, especially in countries like India, where the lockdown states started in March, and many of the workers had to go to their home villages because there was no work for them in the towns. And these people have not been allowed to move back. And so we're seeing issues of labor shortages. So the factories which have reopened don't have the labor they need. The farmer who is used to going to the local market to sell his product cannot go to the market because the local market is closed. And therefore there's no way of him selling it. And they don't have the technology that we just take for granted here in the States of having, such as what we're talking right now on Zoom. Many of these people are used to going physically to the local market to sell their local product, and there's no physical place to do it. There are some technologies going, but the majority of people are leaving it at home. And this brings up a bigger issue of logistics around the world. Many of the ships we saw have been out of place. Containers were dropped, emptied, and these container ships, there are now ships which can hold up to 26,000 containers on one ship, which was basically would have been 4 ships 20 years ago. So we're now down to 1 ship. If there's one issue with that 1 ship, we're now seeing the logistic nightmare of a lack of shipping. Demand has shot up again as COVID has relaxed. The containers aren't available. They're in the wrong place. India, let's use that as our example here. India is an exporter of many, many items in the botanical field. India is a major exporter with China. The problem that's going on in this sphere, which says, what has that got to do with our market? Well, it does have something to do with our market. The containers that China was shipping to India would have then been used to ship to other parts of the world. Well, since the problems in China and India with their border dispute, we're now seeing a lack of containers going to India, which means there's a lack of containers for India to ship to the rest of the world. So we've got that logistic. The trucking companies in India aren't running because they cannot get the papers to move across the borders within the states within India. So the logistics side is becoming a problem. The government officials aren't able to issue documents to people and documents for shipments. So we're seeing many different levels of problems to do with the movement of product. Again, we're also looking, we've often talked about the sustainability of our raw materials. The biggest problem I see today is not only that, but a sustainability of the labor force that is needed to provide these products. Many countries in the world traditionally have had people wildcrafting and going out to collect their small amounts to take to a local dealer who will then go to a more regional dealer. Well, those younger people who would have taken over from their parents' generation have now decided they would rather work in the factory or go to a nicer job or move to another country as movement of population is becoming more the norm. So we're again seeing less people available And that goes from the US to nearly any other country in the world that is providing raw materials. So we've got that issue to think about. So I feel that as demand has continued to increase, many of these crops that we're seeing in 2020 were already placed, and therefore we're having a fairly reasonable supply for this year. The biggest issue is going to be 2021. Where are we going to get the extra raw materials required to keep this industry afloat if we keep the amount of demand up? We cannot just say, well, let's just buy another 40%. We're working in a worldwide botanical market. We are not the only people buying botanicals. Everywhere around the world is buying botanicals, many for COVID type issues or natural health in general. And we're going to see some issues here because we're all going to be fighting for those limited supplies. And because there's limited supplies, and I know we've talked about adulteration, we've talked about crop sizing, where are the materials going to come from? Which automatically means we're going to see prices move up as the market becomes far more competitive than we've seen for quite a long time. We've not seen this issue in our lifetimes on a global front, on across the market front. We've often seen problems on certain items where we suddenly see a huge demand of product, but those have usually been one-offs and are usually sustainable for a few years before we move on to, as I call it, the flavor of the month club, where we look for different products to do different things because somebody has said there are different issues. We're also looking at people stating the huge extra dollar increases in the botanical field. I feel that we measure the growth of the botanical market not in the correct way. And this is my personal feelings. One of the things that I see is that I can buy a pound of a product and it costs, shall we say, $4 a pound. By the time it gets into the consumer's hands, that $1 has now become, that $4 has now become $300 of finished product by the time you've got all the different product paid. So how can we measure the amount of botanicals we're using as against the dollar value of that same amount of product? So those are some of one of the insights I wanted to bring to the attention, that I feel that we are measuring the growth of the botanical field incorrectly because the dollars don't reflect the value of the botanicals. Mm. So that is one of those things. We're also seeing a lot more government intervention and company standards of finished product, which are also limiting our supply base. In the old days, it was literally whatever came out of the ground ended up in a bottle 30 years ago or so. Today, we have standards and requirements that make the limited supply we have even more limited, that we have to meet so many different guidelines, pesticides, other issues of heavy metals, lead and such, which have become critical in this industry. We are seeing the supply of the limited amount of raw materials will dwindle even further. That will meet companies' expectations. So I see there being issues in that area which will reduce supply even further. So those are some of my insights. Happy to answer questions on this one. Lauren, if you have anything you'd like me to bring up further on that area, this is where I stand on just some basic stuff at this stage.
Thank you very much, David. So what I'm taking is 2021 is going to be a tough year for a lot of critical raw materials, and that it feels like we've been burning through whatever reserves existed in 2020. And with all of the complications and the forecasting now that this pandemic, in terms of return to some sort of new normal of trade relationships, could be a year away. And if this is the case, this interview is something that everyone in our industry should watch as they're trying to assess their requirements for 2021. And so for that, I thank you so much for the time today. We'll be back. I would like to get an update in a couple of months as we get into the final fall crops, looking at, we have 2 hemispheres, and to see how we're doing on both crop collection and trade relations between the US and China. I think there's also concerns about tensions between India and China, as you've indicated. And if there is a strong flare-up of COVID-19 plus the flu, sounds pretty dire, but if these things happen, then we can expect continued very strong demand for the natural health products and supplements that we're all engaged in. That tells me that we have to do everything possible to both anticipate and protect the market so that fraudulent products don't get to the shelf, that consumers really are offered the products that they think they're buying, and that when something is gone and there really is no more, I'm going to call you up and say, David, are we there yet? And
it's important. It is very important, Lauren, that I think the buyers of today must not always rely on their computer readouts. The demand, they must look differently to traditional ways of just in time. This is going to be, they should be planning 12 months out, 18 months out, just to guarantee the supply chain that they need to keep their businesses running. Because they don't maybe have the sales against it, they need to educate upper management in their companies often to understand that these shortages are totally different to anything we've ever seen, and therefore cover demand early, or don't be surprised if you cannot get the material.
well, David, you are a straight shooter, always have been, and you bring with that over 40 years of experience. So you are an invaluable resource to me, to the industry, and we're grateful to have you. So thank you for your time today, David. We'll check back in a little bit later in the year. So until then, be well.
Thank you.